Welcome back to Consider This. Melissa and Sharaad here with you. Now, several civil society groups have questioned Putrajaya's decision to postpone the debate and voting on the Independent Police Complaints and Misconduct Commission Bill, or better known as IPCMC. The delay has raised questions as to whether there is genuine political will when it comes to police reform. So we have in the studio with us Melissa Sasidaran, Director of Lawyers for Liberty. And now joining us on the line, we have Josiah, who was a member of the Police Royal Commission of Inquiry in 2004. Ivy, thanks so much for joining us. Now, there was an attempt to reform the police back in 2004, to which there was much resistance. Now, does this feel like history repeating itself all over again? And can you tell us a little bit, Ivy, about that time when it came to police reform?
Yeah, of course, you have to remember in 2004, 2005, I think the police and everyone knew that it was only going to be for a year. This Royal Commission under the Commission of Inquiry Act was only going to last for a year, and we extended it to another 6 months. So perhaps the temporary nature did not require for people to be so resistant. Although, when the police came to see us, because they submitted proposals on housing, salary schemes, even past youth came to submit their proposals, everybody was supportive that we want to give you ideas to the Commission on how to improve the welfare and also to improve the human rights standards and the integrity of the police. So perhaps because it was only for 1 year, there was resistance, but definitely this time around, it's very, very organized and much louder and a lot more powerful, may I say. The resistance has been very well organized. I agree with Melissa that it has been a very organized resistance, and basically they have these. One of the good things about having these open sessions is that we want everybody's opinions. But I keep saying this. Even yesterday, I was at the Institutional Reform Caucus meeting. I kept saying nowhere in the world did any police commission come about with the approval of the police. So yes, the police can say we are not agreeable to this. At the end of the day, the cabinet, in this case, I'm assuming it's Ministry of Home Affairs, but I will say cabinet, let's say the whole cabinet, has to take responsibility and have the political will to just institute it. And definitely they have the simple majority.
Right. So, Ivy, what do you think needs to happen now? I mean, we have a situation, as you put it, it's a kind of impasse. I mean, the old politicians of Malaysia, the politicians of the old Malaysia, as it were, relied heavily on the police to carry out their will, right? In many ways. It was an authoritarian state dependent on police powers. We're supposed to be moving into a democratic era. Now, what do you think will convince the cabinet led by Dr. Mahathir, it's a Dr. Mahathir administration, convince him that the public is there and wants this, and regardless of the needs or desires of the police hierarchy, this must go through?
Well, I guess you can make it into an elections issue. You can make it into a voting issue, because I think at the end of the day, the voters, the Malaysians want this IPCMC, because the deaths in custody, the violations, the beatings, the torture, all of that should be enough, right? So perhaps we should make it into an elections commission. I was telling my colleagues in the CSO world that we have 1 day to be collectively depressed. Of course, we all are disheartened, and the work starts tomorrow. After 24 hours, we have to start lobbying. We have to convince people, because even like yesterday, members of parliament were telling me that this is unconstitutional, when over and over again we've had shown that it is not. It is constitutional. Sharaad Farooqi himself, as an expert, has explained that this is constitutional. So there are many myths around this too. But I think the resistance basically comes from the fact that the police do not want it. So yeah, Sharaad, I do not know how to move on, but I do know how to move on. The only way I know, to lobby, make it into an elections issue, make it into a voters issue, and make it into a public policy issue that the public wanted.
All right, Ivy, thank you so much for joining us and sharing those insights with us. I'm going to come back to Melissa Sasidaran here in the studio with us from Lawyers for Liberty. Can you just comment a little bit on what Ivy said, Melissa, about the backlash saying that the IPCMC is unconstitutional?
as Ivy said, it has been repeatedly, rebutted, that there's no issue of constitutionality at all.
Why is there this? So why do they keep bringing it up? Where is that grey area?
It's the police bringing it up, and I think it's a case of if you repeat it often enough, perhaps you'll become the truth. So,
which is of course a kind of Nazi-era Goebbels-like approach to propaganda. I do want to ask you though this. I mean, let's not talk about the police. Let's talk about members of parliament and even those who are on the side of the government of the day. Is it that, again, in many ways, Malaysia, that we push too fast, too ahead of even the MPs who seem to be woefully ignorant of the bills that are put before them?
I don't agree at all that this bill has been rushed in any way. This has been in the making for 14, 15 years. This started during Barisan Nasional's time. And the way, we have seen how the consultations have been done, the tabling of the bill, the consultations, and all the efforts by CSOs to put in recommendations on how to improve it. There's plenty of time and I believe that the amendments that were supposed to be tabled today, there were supposed to be 37
amendments, right?
I think the current bill as it stands, as I said, it's not great, but it's something that we can work with and improve over time. Just like what we have seen in the UK, for example. It has spanned over 30 odd years of evolving with time.
Right.
And actually the conversation on IPCMC in the UK started way earlier in the 1920s.
Very quickly, Melissa, do you think that it would help the conversation here in Malaysia with the IPCMC if that report by the Parliamentary Select Committee was made available so we understand what the 37 proposed amendments are?
Yes, I completely agree, and I have no idea why the Parliamentary Select Committee report was embargoed by Parliament. And because the report has been tabled in Parliament last week, it should have been made publicly available on the website, together with the amendments, so that public can see what are the amendments and debate on it. And I think this was one of the reasons why many of our Member of Parliaments, put aside the large silence on this issue.
You're right.
But I think many of them were not aware of the changes that has been made to it, and they were unable to counter all these objections that has been brought by the police.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show today and shedding light on this issue. That's all the time we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris. With me, Sharaad Kuttan, signing off for tonight. Thank you for watching and good night.